Daniel never imagined that one faint sound in the night would change his life forever. Walking home, he heard a soft cry so weak it almost disappeared into the wind. Following the sound, he stumbled upon something that nearly stopped his heart, the tiniest puppy he had ever seen. So fragile, it looked as if one breath might be its last. Its damp fur clung to its trembling body, and those pleading eyes seemed to beg silently. "Don't leave me." Daniel scooped the little creature into his palms, shocked by how weightless it felt, lighter than a feather, yet carrying a heartbeat that pounded desperately against his skin. He whispered, "I've got you," though inside he feared he was already too late. He rushed to the vet, but nothing could prepare him for what came next. The doctor froze, tears welling in his eyes as he revealed a truth no one could have expected. Subscribe to Shepherd Legacy for more true stories of courage and devotion. Tell us in the comments, which city are you watching from today? The streets were quiet that night, the kind of silence that makes every sound sharper. Daniel walked with his collar turned up against the cold, his boots crunching softly on damp pavement. He was tired from a long shift, ready to collapse into bed, when something unusual stopped him in his tracks. At first, he thought it was the wind. A faint whimper, almost swallowed by the night. He paused, listening harder. There it was again, thin, desperate, like a cry too weak to be heard. Daniel followed the sound, his heart beginning to race. It led him down a narrow alley where shadows clung to the walls. The smell of rain and garbage lingered in the air. He almost turned back until he saw it. Huddled near a broken cardboard box was the tiniest puppy he had ever laid eyes on. Its fur was damp and matted, clinging to skin stretched over fragile bones. The little body shook with each shallow breath. Its eyes, barely open, flickered with a pleading glow that went straight into Daniel's chest. He knelt slowly, afraid even his movements might scare the tiny creature into silence. "Hey, buddy." His voice cracked in disbelief. "You're just a baby." When he reached out, the puppy didn't run. Instead, it lifted its trembling head just enough to meet his gaze, as if begging him not to leave. Daniel's throat tightened. He could feel the weight of that silent plea. Carefully, he scooped the puppy into his hands. He gasped. It was so light, so frighteningly delicate, as though one wrong touch could break it. Its heartbeat fluttered frantically against his palm, rapid and uneven. "Hold on," he whispered, cradling the fragile life close to his chest. He could feel the puppy's ribs through its skin, every bone too sharp for such a tiny frame. Daniel's instinct screamed at him to get help. He ran to his car, his coat wrapped around the puppy to shield it from the cold. The whimpering grew faint, weaker with every passing second. His chest tightened with panic. "Don't you dare give up," he muttered, his voice fierce now. "Not while I've got you." The drive to the vet was a blur of red lights and desperate prayers. Daniel's eyes kept darting to the small bundle in his lap. Once, the puppy stopped moving, and his heart nearly stopped with it until a tiny shiver passed through its body again. By the time he pulled into the clinic parking lot, Daniel's hands were trembling. He burst through the doors, cradling the puppy like something holy. "Please," he cried out, his voice echoing in the sterile white room. "Somebody help him." The nurse rushed forward, eyes widening as she saw what Daniel carried. "Oh my God. It's so small." Daniel's knees almost buckled. "But he's alive," he whispered. "He's still alive." The clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic, the hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence. Daniel stood frozen as the nurse whisked the tiny puppy from his hands and rushed toward the exam room. He followed close behind, his boots echoing on the linoleum floor, on the table. The puppy looked impossibly small against the white sheets. Its chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. The vet, Dr. Carter, entered quickly, pulling on gloves. His brows furrowed the moment his eyes landed on the pup. "My God," he murmured, leaning in. "I've never seen one this small outside the womb." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight. But he's breathing, right? He's fighting? Dr. Carter didn't answer right away. He placed his stethoscope gently against the puppy's side. For a moment, there was only silence. Then his eyes softened. The heartbeat is weak, but it's there. He hasn't given up yet. The nurse moved swiftly, setting up a heating pad, placing a tiny oxygen mask over the puppy's nose. The sight nearly broke Daniel's heart. The mask looked bigger than the pup's entire head. "Stay with him," Daniel whispered fiercely, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the table. "He's made it this far. Don't let him go now." The vet's hands moved with delicate precision. He checked the puppy's eyes, his tiny paws, the fragile skin that looked paper-thin. "He's dehydrated, malnourished, and—" Dr. Carter paused, his expression darkening. Daniel leaned forward, desperate. "And what?" The vet looked up slowly. He wasn't abandoned because he was sick. He was abandoned because he was too small. The runt of the litter. Whoever bred him must have thought he wouldn't survive. The words hit Daniel like a blow. He stared at the trembling puppy, his chest heavy with rage and sorrow. "So they just left him to die?" Dr. Carter's voice cracked, quieter now. "Some breeders don't see value in the smallest ones. To them, he's a burden. But to me," he broke off, clearing his throat, blinking fast as if fighting tears. "To me, he's a miracle. The fact that he's even here. It's unbelievable." Daniel's jaw tightened. He reached out, brushing his fingers gently across the puppy's damp fur. "Then he's mine now. He's not going to die nameless in some alley. Not while I'm here." For the first time that night, the faintest flicker of hope sparked in the vet's tired eyes. "If you're willing to fight for him, so will we." The oxygen machine hummed softly. The puppy twitched, a tiny paw stretching weakly as if reaching toward the sound of Daniel's voice. Daniel felt his throat close. He bent low, whispering near the puppy's ear. "I've got you. You're not alone anymore." The room fell silent, every eye fixed on the fragile bundle fighting for life. And though no one dared say it, they all felt the same truth. This tiny creature was holding on with a will stronger than anyone expected. The clinic had quieted as the night deepened. But for Daniel, time had lost meaning. He sat hunched in a chair beside the exam table, his eyes locked on the tiny bundle under the warming lamp. Every rise and fall of the puppy's chest felt like a miracle and a risk. Nurses came and went, checking the drip, adjusting the oxygen mask, jotting down notes. But Daniel never moved far. He kept one hand resting near the puppy, his fingers brushing gently against its trembling body, as though his touch alone might anchor it to life. Dr. Carter stepped in again, his face etched with fatigue. "He's fighting," he said softly. "But it's going to be hour by hour. We can't promise anything." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I don't need promises. I just need him to have a chance." The vet's eyes softened. "Most men would have walked away, Daniel. But you didn't." Daniel looked down at the fragile pup, his throat tight. "Because he didn't walk away, either. He could have given up in that alley. But he didn't. If he can fight, so can I." Hours passed. At one point, the puppy stirred, letting out a sound so faint it barely registered. Daniel leaned close, his heart leaping. "That's it, little one. Stay with me." The pup's eyes flickered open for the briefest second, dark and glassy, before slipping shut again. The moment carved itself into Daniel's chest. Those eyes had looked at him not with fear, but with trust. A silent promise. "I'll keep trying if you do too." By dawn, the worst had not come. The tiny body was still breathing, shallow but steady. Dr. Carter returned with a small smile tugging at his tired face. He made it through the night. That alone is a victory. Daniel exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His shoulders sagged with relief, but his eyes stayed locked on the pup. He's not just surviving. He's proving them all wrong. The nurse stepped forward with a small syringe. carefully feeding drops of formula into the puppy's mouth. The pup swallowed weakly, and the smallest sound escaped him, a faint whimper. Fragile but alive, Daniel's chest ached. He brushed his thumb across the pup's tiny paw. "You've got a name now," he whispered. "Hope, because that's what you are." Dr. Carter's voice trembled slightly as he nodded. Fitting. The clinic fell quiet again, save for the steady hum of machines and the soft rhythm of fragile breaths. Daniel stayed right there, whispering words of encouragement, every syllable carrying the weight of his heart. And as the first light of morning spilled through the clinic windows, something shifted. The puppy Hope twitched again, this time pressing his tiny head faintly against Daniel's hand. It was the smallest gesture. Yet to Daniel, it felt like a vow. "I'm not done fighting." Not yet. For a brief time, Daniel let himself believe the worst had passed. The tiny pup, now named Hope, had survived the night. His breaths were still shallow, but steadier. His body, though fragile, seemed to cling harder to life with every hour. But just as quickly as hope bloomed, fear came crashing back. Late that afternoon, Daniel noticed the change. Hope's little chest, once rising and falling rhythmically, began to stutter. His breathing grew ragged, each inhale sounding like a struggle. His small body twitched, and a faint whimper escaped his throat, a sound so weak it sliced Daniel's heart in two. "Doctor!" Daniel's voice cracked as he shouted for help. Dr. Carter rushed in, his face immediately tightening. "He's crashing." The room burst into motion. A nurse checked the oxygen mask. Another adjusted the IV line. Dr. Carter placed 2 fingers gently on the pup's chest, counting beats with grim focus. Daniel stood frozen, terror clawing at him. He wanted to help, to do something, anything, but all he could do was watch. His fists clenched until his knuckles turned white. His jaw locked tight. "Don't you dare give up," he whispered harshly, his voice trembling. Not after all this. Hope's tiny body jerked again, his breaths coming shorter, weaker. The monitor beeped unevenly. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Stay with him," Dr. Carter muttered, his hands working quickly. "Come on, little one. Don't quit now." Minutes stretched like hours. The room was suffocating with silence, broken only by beeps and desperate murmurs. Daniel felt tears burn his eyes, but he refused to blink. He couldn't look away. At one point, the monitor flatlined into an eerie pause. Daniel's knees buckled. "No." His voice was raw, guttural. "No, not like this." Dr. Carter's voice rose sharply. "I'm not losing him. Not tonight." He massaged Hope's chest with delicate pressure, whispering under his breath, "Come back, little fighter. Come back." Then, faint but undeniable, a flutter. The monitor beeped weakly. Hope's chest lifted, a tiny breath forcing its way back into the world. Daniel gasped, gripping the table for support as relief surged through him like fire. "That's it, buddy. That's it. You fight." The nurse's voice cracked. "He's stabilizing." Slowly, the room settled. The monitor beeped in steadier rhythm. Hope's tiny body relaxed, though still trembling. His breaths shallow but present. Daniel pressed a hand over his face, tears streaming freely now. He bent low, his forehead resting gently against the pup's side. "Don't scare me like that again," he whispered. "You hear me? You're stronger than this. Stronger than they ever believed." Dr. Carter straightened, his shoulders sagging with exhaustion. His eyes glistened, though he tried to hide it behind professionalism. "I don't know how he's still here. By every law of nature, he shouldn't be, but he refuses to let go." Daniel nodded, brushing his thumb softly across Hope's paw. "That's because he knows he's not alone anymore." In that moment, the fragile puppy stirred faintly, pressing his head against Daniel's hand once more. It was weak but deliberate, a silent answer to the vow Daniel had made. The night after Hope's collapse was long and restless. Daniel stayed at the clinic, refusing to leave the fragile pup's side. He sat slumped in the chair, his hand resting gently near Hope's tiny body, whispering encouragements through the hours. By dawn, something had changed. The faint rhythm of breathing was steadier now. The sharp, uneven gasps from the night before had softened into fragile but consistent breaths. When Daniel leaned close, he could feel the warmth returning to the pup's frail body. Slow but undeniable. Dr. Carter entered quietly, his eyes scanning the monitor. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then, almost in disbelief, he exhaled a shaky laugh. "He's stronger." Daniel lifted his head, exhaustion etched into his features, but hope flickering in his eyes. "You mean he's going to make it?" The vet didn't answer right away. Instead, he gently stroked the pup's head with a single gloved finger. Hope twitched in response, the tiniest sound escaping his throat, a faint whimper. But alive. Dr. Carter blinked quickly, his voice trembling. "I've practiced medicine for 30 years. I've seen countless animals fight for life. But this?" His eyes glistened as he turned toward Daniel. "This is a miracle." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat aching. He looked down at the fragile creature curled under the heating lamp, his heart swelling. "I knew it the moment I picked him up. He wasn't ready to go. He just needed someone to believe in him." The nurse entered with a small syringe of formula. Carefully, she placed drops into Hope's mouth. At first, the puppy didn't respond. Then his tiny tongue flicked, swallowing weakly. His body shuddered, but he drank. Daniel's breath hitched. "That's it, buddy. That's how you fight." With each drop, the pup seemed to gather strength. His paw twitched. His head shifted slightly, pressing faintly against the nurse's hand. Dr. Carter's voice softened to a whisper. "Do you realize what this means? He was abandoned because he was too small, too weak. Everyone gave up on him. But look at him now." He paused, emotion cracking his tone. "He's proving them all wrong." Daniel leaned closer, his hand gently cupping the tiny pup's body. "You're not a mistake," he murmured. "You're meant to be here. You're Hope." The pup's eyes flickered open, just for a second. Dark, glassy, fragile, but alive. And in that fleeting moment, Daniel swore he saw something more than survival in them. He saw determination. Tears blurred Daniel's vision. He bent his head, his voice trembling. "I promise you this, whatever it takes. I'll give you the life they didn't think you deserved." For the first time since that night began, Dr. Carter let out a long breath of relief. His shoulders sagged, and a faint smile touched his lips. "Then maybe, just maybe, this little one has a future." The room grew still again. The only sound the steady hum of the machines and the soft breaths of the smallest fighter they had ever seen. And in that fragile quiet, Daniel felt it, the spark of strength returning. A miracle unfolding right before their eyes. Days turned into weeks, and each one carried a fragile kind of victory. What began as a fight for every breath slowly became a steady climb toward life. Hope, the name Daniel had given him, proved it true every single day. At first, it was the little things. His breaths grew fuller, his heart steadier. His tiny body no longer trembled with every movement. Then came the moment Daniel would never forget, the day Hope opened his eyes fully for the first time. Those dark orbs, glassy but alert, locked on Daniel's face as if recognizing the man who had carried him out of the alley. Daniel's chest ached, his throat tight. He whispered, "Hey, little guy. You made it." And Hope, as if understanding, let out the faintest whimper, a sound that carried more power than any roar. Dr. Carter marveled at every milestone. The first time Hope licked a drop of formula from a dish instead of a syringe. The first time his paws pressed weakly against the towel beneath him, trying to stand. "He shouldn't even be alive," the vet admitted, his eyes often misting as he spoke. "But here he is, rewriting every rule I know." Daniel stayed through it all. He cleaned, fed, and cradled the pup as though caring for something sacred. Each night, he sat by Hope's small bed at the clinic, whispering stories about the life waiting for him outside these walls, fields to run in, toys to chew, a home where he would never be abandoned again. The first time Hope tried to bark, it was barely more than a squeak. Daniel laughed and cried at once, brushing a tear from his cheek. "That's my boy," he whispered, "finding your voice." And then, at last came the day Dr. Carter said the words Daniel had been praying for. "He's strong enough to go home." Daniel could hardly believe it. He bundled Hope carefully in a soft blanket, holding him against his chest as though he carried the most precious treasure in the world. As they stepped out of the clinic, sunlight spilled across them. The same streets where Daniel had once found a broken, trembling creature now saw them walking forward together, survivor and savior, bound by something deeper than chance. At home, Hope explored cautiously at first, his tiny paws patting across the rug. But then, with growing confidence, he wagged his tail, an unsteady, wobbly wag that sent Daniel's heart soaring. The little runt who had been left to die was alive, thriving, and finally safe. That night, Daniel sat with Hope curled against his chest, the puppy's tiny body rising and falling in perfect rhythm. He whispered into the quiet, "You were never too small. You were never too weak. You're proof that miracles come in the unlikeliest packages." Hope stirred, letting out a soft sigh, as if answering back. And in that stillness, Daniel knew the truth. The smallest puppy had not only fought for his own life, he had given Daniel a reason to believe in miracles again.